Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started here in just a few minutes. I'm trying to get everybody seated, if they will. Sorry, we're running a little late. I didn't get word that we were moving over here until just a few minutes ago, so give us just a second. Okay, we got everybody here?
Yes.
Please.
We've already got them circulated.
Okay. Okay, we got a few folks coming in. Dusty Hightower is coming in. His law office caught on fire this morning, so he's going to be a little late. I think everything's fine, but so must have been a hot law over there or something. Hey, Keith. All right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the Intergovernmental Coordination Committee. And we have one bill on the agenda this morning, House Bill 1197 by Representative Carla Drenner from Decatur. We've got this bill is signed by Representative Jacobs, Henson, Williams, and Gardner, and many others. If you will, Ms. Drenner, if you will, just come up and present your bill, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm here to present to you House Bill 1197, 1197, and as you stated, it was my understanding that I followed the rules of the House in that I took it to the delegation. I posted the newspaper ad. It moved out of the delegation with 16 out of 18 signatures. And the intent of the bill is to prohibit telecommunication towers on the placement of school property in the county of DeKalb moving forward. That's the sole intent of the bill.
And do you want to explain your bill, or do you want to go on through it, or do you want to just bring these folks up that
What
like
would
to speak to
I
them?
guess I'm perhaps you might help me out a little bit. I'm really unclear as to why I'm here today, since this is a local piece of legislation, and I did follow the rules.
And you did. You did everything you were supposed to do, and I will give you every piece of credit on that. However, I would like for these folks to bring the issue forward, and then I will explain everything that is going on as far as the bill is concerned. But I'd like for the folks to speak their mind, because I think they have a legitimate reason for being here, and I would like them to have that time. Unless would you like to give that time now, or do you want?
Again, Mr. Chairman, for clarification, which folks are you talking about?
Well, we've got a Ms. Joan Carpels, Richard Morrow, Dara Schleister, Viola Davis, Ruby Bozeman, Zoe Reichman, and Stephanie Byrne. I think they all want to speak to the bill. If you don't want to, okay, all right. If you want to, we'll be glad to recognize you too. Do y'all want to speak?
I've had 4 public hearings now on this particular piece of legislation. It is a DeKalb only bill. It does not prohibit any contracts that are currently underway with regard to the school system. For many of you who do not know, there are 9 schools in DeKalb County that have signed contracts with T-Mobile to erect telecommunication towers on school property. And as such, there has been a lot of, as you will hear in a minute, a lot of public outcry about the fact that they are being sited on school property. I can speak to some of the technical aspects of the bill. I would like to do that at the end after they,
Sure.
as a PhD and a radiation physicist, I have some concerns with regard to what is going on in DeKalb County right now, and just again would like to say to the committee that it is my understanding that Rule 50, that this bill meets the technical requirements of local legislation, and so therefore I was caught off guard that I would have to come before the committee and present on a local bill. I've in the 12 years I've been here, I've never have seen or been a part of anything like this before.
Okay. Will you yield for questions?
Absolutely.
16.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's see. Is telecommunications tower defined anywhere, either in your bill or in our code otherwise?
I'm not aware of that.
Would this include the prohibition of a mobile telecommunication or television satellite uplink van? Because I noticed you have placed or operated. And so do you feel that this bill may impact the First Amendment in restricting the press if a telecommunications van is not allowed to be operated on any of these properties?
The intent of the bill specifically talks about a tower, not a van.
Well, I understand, but they have towers. They extend up. They have uplinks, and that. And that's why I asked if it has
We are
been.
talking about a tower, not an uplink. A tower.
Well, I guess
Erection
respectfully, I
of
would
a
say we're
tower.
talking about whatever the term is defined as, and so you don't have the term defined. Is that correct?
No, I do not.
Thank you.
I'm sure that there's other places in the statute where that term is defined.
Any further questions? Members of the committee? Okay. Ms., is it Joan Carples? Is it Carples? Okay. If you want to come forward, please.
Good morning. My name is Joan Carpellis, and I've been living in DeKalb since 1983. I'm embarrassed to admit that I don't know a lot about the workings of local government, but I want to believe there's integrity in the process. Last fall, there was a sign prominently placed at the bottom of a nearby street notifying us that there was going to be traffic calming measures that were going to take place. The sign was up for about a month. A few weeks later, surveyors were out putting stakes at the top of the hill, and we pretty much surmised that had to do with the notification. Around the same time, a neighbor was out walking a dog and asked me if I'd heard that T-Mobile was planning to put a cell phone tower in the exact spot where those survey tapes were. I was confused because I thought the sign was talking about 4-inch speed bumps, not 150-foot cell phone towers. Our neighborhood reached out for information about this rumor, but we kept running into obstacles. We found it difficult to get any honest answers. We found it difficult. The more we were able to piece together the timeline of events, the more it became apparent that the dealings about the cell phone tower were made behind closed doors without any notification to the neighborhood. I'm very thankful that State Representative Carla Drenner took the time to listen to our concerns and stepped up with HB 1197. I also want to thank Senator Jason Carter for introducing SB 498. I'm hopeful that their knowledge of how to navigate through the system will allow us to get over any remaining obstacles. T-Mobile certainly found a way around their obstacles. They just paid the school board so they could circumvent county zoning and building codes. Do you realize that the school they're proposing to put this cell phone tower is on the grounds of a school that serves kids with special needs? Do you realize it's in the middle of a neighborhood? Does it seem right to you that a private, for-profit company that has nothing to do with educating children be allowed to gain access to public property that was paid for by the citizens of the county? I might add, without any kind of notification or hearing. This is a dangerous, slippery slope. DeKalb County cannot and should not become a county that can be bought by the highest bidder. Like I said, I don't really know how government works. but I'm here standing before you because I can't believe that it's supposed to work this way. Thank you.
Will you yield for questions if anyone has? Anybody have any questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jones. Next on our list is is it Richard Morrow?
Thank you. My name is Richard Mary, and I reside at 2073 Castlewood Lane in Atlanta, Georgia. It's unincorporated DeKalb County. I live within walking distance of the Briar Lake Elementary School. Approximately 6 months ago, I was made aware that T-Mobile was considering building a cell tower, constructing a single cell tower at our school, and later found out that they were going to, the Board of Education would come in and build 9 cell towers at 9 schools in DeKalb County. Specifically, we got together where there was no notification to the community, there was no real notification to the school. Regardless of what the Board of Education tells you, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people that did not know that this cell tower or any cell tower was going to be built at any school. Over the last 6 months, I've spoken in front of the Board of Education, the DeKalb Board of Commissioners. Representative Drenner has fully backed and heard our voice. There are now well over 1,000 people and 20 organizations that has been a grassroots organization that has come up to prevent these cell towers being put at elementary schools. We seek your assistance in passing and moving forward Carla Drenner's House Bill 1197 and the Senate Bill 498. You need to understand that we are not against cell towers. We are against cell towers on public elementary and other schools that the DeKalb Board of Education has. We have gotten nowhere with the DeKalb County Board of Education. You need to realize that cell towers have an appropriate place on commercially zoned property. The property for the Briar Lake Elementary School, as well as the people that have children at the 8 other schools, these are not commercially zoned properties. We want the local enforcement of zoning regulations. We want you to hear Representative Drenner talk about possible radiation issues, and you also need to know that the Briar Lake Elementary School is a magnet school for the hearing impaired. The school is wired specifically, and there are numerous students that come throughout the county. We have research that shows that there is the possibility that this could be damaging, especially to young children with cochlear ear implants. No one has given any consideration about these and other issues regarding zoning, and we humbly and respectfully request that you listen not only to us, but Representative Drenner and the voice of the community that represents well over 1,000 people in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Will you yield for questions, sir?
Yes, I will.
15.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, sir, did you make this case to the DeKalb County School Board themselves? And with those statements that you made to us, I'm assuming you made them to the DeKalb County School Board. And I'm originally from DeKalb myself. I don't represent there now. I was just wondering, what was the feedback if you did make those assertions to the board, the school board? What was the school board's feedback when you?
Okay, not only have I spoken on numerous occasions, but almost every single one of these people have spoken on numerous occasions. The school board shut us down. They completely stonewalled our efforts to gain a hearing, a meeting, They refuse to listen to the voice of the community. A complete and utter stonewalling process. I'll be happy to answer any other questions.
Mike Nine, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Twice in your comments you referenced local zoning issues. You know, if we're all fans of local control, what would you say of what you're doing and what Representative Drenner's doing is attempting to usurp local control and getting the state to intervene because simply the locals not doing what you want them to do? Do you believe in local control generally?
I believe in local control, and I want the DeKalb County Board of Education to enforce their local zoning ordinances, which would in and of itself prevent the construction of cell towers, because there is not enough room for local zoning setbacks, which I believe can exist anywhere from 150 to 200 feet. There specifically at several schools is no place to put the tower. And what the DeKalb County Board of Education wants to overrule the DeKalb County Board of Commissioners and put the cell tower perhaps within 50 feet of not only the school building, but maybe 50 feet within property lines. By a show of hands, how many people know that that statement is basically true? They want to put things literally within 50 feet of property lines of not only the school buildings, but also the residences and the houses that surround these public schools.
And thank you so much. So you're coming before this committee saying that there's a lack of input or a lack of response from the school system in what you believe is a violation of local ordinances established by the county that they being the county, chooses to ignore?
We don't know if they're ignoring it. We know that several Board of Commissioners have come to our meetings, had heard our plea, have heard our cry, have heard how many people are in the community, and they individually are taking it upon themselves to do something. But as a whole, we have not gotten one official letter from the DeKalb County Board of Commissioners.
Okay. Thank you so much for that response. Has anyone from you or your organization or the grassroots asked for or presented at all to the county commission your concerns of violation of zoning within the county?
Yes, we have done this for 6 months straight.
In front of the county commission?
Yes.
And have you done that? Is there a local code enforcement there?
A representative of local code enforcement? I do not know if there's one attending.
Have you
those
specifically
meetings.
asked for a ruling from the local county attorney on whether or not they're in a violation?
Yes, we have, and they have refused to give us feedback. And I want to make this also clear that we also know that 2/3 of our property taxes go to the school board, while 1/3 goes to the DeKalb County. And correct me anyone if I'm incorrect here on these statistics, but what we believe is happening is the school board is controlling what the DeKalb County Board of Commissioners is attempting to do regarding cell towers, and this is why we are not getting a response, because it's monetarily based in favor of the DeKalb County Board of Education. And monetarily, they end up knowing that they may have the power over the DeKalb County Board of Commissioners, and therefore our voice is not being representative, and this is why it is so important for all of you to support Representative Drenner's legislation, because what we're being told is, well, the DeKalb County Board of Education has no authority that overrules whatever they may do.
Mike 15. Any other questions of Mr. Merrill? Okay.
And it's Marion.
Marion.
M-A-R-I-O-N.
I'm sorry.
Richard.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Okay. Dara, is it Slackler? Okay.
Thank you for your time this morning. I think more so than speaking about the technicalities and the details of the contracts and all that's gone on thus far, I think I'd like to speak more about the emotional side and what I've gone through and what I know many, many others have gone through this process. I purchased my home adjacent to Briar Lake Elementary, excuse me, within the last 2 years or so. I really was very excited about purchasing my home. I really, really wanted my child to go to Briar Lake Elementary. It's a fabulous school. It represents DeKalb County very well. This is a process that I, as did everybody else I know, find out about after the fact. Very closed doors, very behind the scenes, particularly given the Board of Education member lives a couple houses away from me. I was very frustrated and very proud of the community for coming together and putting forth all the efforts and the thousands of hours of resources, of finances, etc., that we've done thus far. I speak to what Richard spoke to as well as it relates to the Board of Education. I myself emailed Cheryl Atkinson 3 times, refused to even receive an acknowledgement of my emails. And let me tell you, after months of working on this, the only response I received from the Board of Education, or I should say DeKalb County, was when I spent 3 hours on the phone with the news media. I got an email that said, "Can I help you with any questions?" Well, a couple months too late. So that being said, you know, I know several families that have their homes on the markets, others that will now put their kids in private school. And really, for me, the biggest problem I have with this, again, is the secrecy, the lack of due process, and the complete disregard for my and all other constituents' feelings and or thoughts. It's just such a frustrating, I guess I was misled. I guess I was naive. I guess I had too much faith in the process and people in general. But that being said, that's why I represent and that's why I support this bill, because even if it won't help us, which is a shame, it will set precedents and help others so they don't have to go through what we've gone through. And that being said, the only other comment I had is as it relates to research. I think there's a lot of negligence here when it comes to signing a contract to put 150-foot cell towers on very small school campuses when long-term research has yet to be concluded, naturally because it takes time to conclude these long-term research. So that being said, I'm not very happy about putting my daughter under a tower for years of her life for which research has yet to be concluded. And I refer to the WHO for anybody that would like to read more. Thank you.
Do I have any questions? Anybody? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Viola Davis.
Viola Davis with the Unhappy Taxpayer Voter. I'm standing here and I'm going to have to tell you, my heart is heavy. Because I looked and finished speaking to my mother. She moved me from Texas down to Topeka, Kansas. And there she met a Charles Scott Sr. You may not know him, but he was one of the first lawyers to take on the case Brown versus the Board of Education. I stand before you saying that I'm an actual plaintiff in that Brown versus Board of Education. You may not know it, but it was about 2 or 3 cases after the original. Who would have known that I would be standing before a board trying to explain how we as parents, homeowners, taxpayers, and voters try to get some justice with our Board of Education? You don't know, so let me tell you. They held the hearings in May of 2011 right at the term when you're getting ready to go for summer break. By the time we found out about it, we was like, oh my gosh, all the parents are gone. So we started doing our research. We had less than 2 weeks to do research. We drove out to Cobb County. We took pictures of all the cell towers. You can go on the internet, YouTube, and you can see what we tried to get some idea. Did they follow their plan? Where they was going to place the cell towers. And if you look at those pictures, you'll see that most of them are next to a playground or next to the stadium's open space where children play. After we did that, we went and did research. And we found out that the parents were screaming just as loud as we are right now. But, of course, we were in a different county. We didn't hear them. After we did that, we went and we did research. We looked up every type of research dealing with cell towers, anything we could find. We took all of that and we put it in an email. June 8th, I can send it to every one of you. And we sent it to each one of the school board members. Not only did we send it to the school board members, we sent it to every one of our people in the delegation. We said there is no need to vote this in. First of all, we have Splash that we vote in all the time. And if you look at the amount of money that the state of Georgia take out of our school system from 2006 to the present, it's $100 million. It's up to $129 million. Instead of putting cell towers on our school grounds, why don't you ask for $3 million of that $129 million that comes out of our school system? Don't endanger the health of our children. And we said, since you did not give us enough notice where we can go out and speak. See, I'm from the black community. Most of those towers were going to be placed within the black community. I don't have a list group that I can go to most of the people in my community. We have to get our word out differently. We have to go door to door. We got to go to the churches. That's how we communicate. We made it clear to them, you are not giving us enough time to inform the parents, the homeowners across the board. Now, did they listen to us as voters? No, they didn't. Did they listen to us as taxpayers? When we broke down, you don't have to do this. This is where you can get some money. This is where you can't get some money. No, they didn't. And now we are right here, and they're using our tax dollars to pay for a lobbyist to make us all of us work. We have to work to pay the taxes to supply the budget right here in the Capitol for you to do what you're doing. We should not have to go through all of this to hold the people who are hired with our vote and paid with our tax money to do what we want to. Now, many of you talk about these technicalities. Let me give you a technicality. 16 out of 18 of our representatives signed on to this local bill. It's not going to affect nobody but DeKalb County that has just under 700,000 people. Now, you add up all those people that those representatives represent. You're talking about close to 600,000 because the average is around 50,000. You're telling me that I, as a veteran who have served my country honorably, I, as a critical care nurse who understands the meaning of an oath, because I take the Nightingale oath to protect my patients, that I, as a homeowner, have absolutely no say in this, and then I, as a consumer, find out that the people that I buy product from is flying in from national, I better get scared? I'm here to tell you, when we leave out this door, them school board members that are hired with our vote, paid with our tax money, are going to learn hard way who's the employer and who's the employee. When we get out that door, we have it already written down how many votes in the primary they were elected. We're not going to let them wait till the election. They're going to hear us speak now. When it comes down to these cell tower companies, we will address them as consumers. God himself gave us 3 powers: as taxpayers, as voters, and as consumers. If you kick us in the throat on one end, we will come after you on the other. Right now, we are getting ready to deal with our employees in DeKalb County. We don't want to have to mess with you on the state level. I'm not sure, with all due respect, if any of you feel threatened, please believe me. I in no way threaten you. Hear me as a taxpayer, as a voter, as a consumer, as a parent and a homeowner.
Ms. Davis, I agree with you. To some extent, I understand your plight. Okay, we're hearing it, but try to keep your emotions to you.
I'm sorry.
I understand.
I understand this.
Just try to keep your emotions.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's okay.
Anybody who
I understand your emotion about it.
Anybody who has been threatened at all, in any way, by what I said, please don't. I'm an everyday taxpayer, trying to make a living, taking care of my family, taking care of my property. All I'm asking you for is to understand my passion in wanting local rule. That is it.
Any questions, Ms. Davis? Okay, Ms. Ruby Davis. Folks, if you will, I understand this is a passionate situation, but if you will, try to give us your explanation of what you feel like is wrong, but try not to let your emotions run wild with you, okay? Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Good morning. I will try to be a little calmer, but I have to let you know that we are passionate about this situation. We do not at no time want cell towers on our school grounds. Now, I think a lot of you are parents. I'm a parent, a grandparent, and a great-grandparent. I don't want these towers on our school grounds. Now, they say that, well, there's no evidence that these towers are going to hurt our children. But who's to say that it's not? I have literally sat and watched the little 7-year-old girl die. Do you have an idea what that was like? Do you have an idea of what that parent was going through? At the very idea of these parents out here thinking that my child may have leukemia or brain cancer. How can I deal with that? How do you expect me to accept that when I know that there's a chance that I could have prevented it? You said there's no harm, there's no study done on children. Can you ask yourself why? Why is there no study on children? How the effect of cell phones, it's about the money. Most of our children have cell phones in their little hands. They getting cell phones now when they're 5 or 6 years old, they have cell phones. You know they do, grandparents. Grandma, can I have a phone? We're not thinking about the damage that they're doing. But a child can go put that cell phone over here or over there. But you can't move that cell tower. You can't move that. Our parents, you all said that our children have to go to, I'm at Jolly. Can you just imagine, when you have nothing else to do, drive over on Norman where Jolly is and just picture a cell tower on those grounds. How can that person sell their homes under a cell tower? You're committed, you don't understand what's going on here. You're talking about money. You're putting no value in people. Those people that live in Jolly area, most of them own their own homes. If they want to sell it, how are they going to sell it? Would you buy a house under a cell tower? Come on. When you tell me you all don't have anything to worry about as legislators, you all put your faith in me. But we put our faith in you to take care of our children when 37 of them died. So So how can I expect and think that you're going to protect over 100,000 children when you can't protect 37? Tell me. We do not want those cell towers on our school grounds for our children.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. I will let you know I'm a funeral director, so I know what your passion is. Ms. Reichman, Zoe Reichman.
I'm a little confused on why I'm here today, because the buck has been passed from here to here to here on how to get some sort of support from some sort of legislators on helping us with the issue of cell towers on schoolyards. So can you help me? Am I in the right place? Or you're not open for questions? Okay, good. You know, we should be giving you plenty of information on yeah, I got a lot of statements. Thank you. I'd like to put forward to all of you that a quote from Albert Einstein. He was a really smart guy. He said that our technology has surpassed our humanity. And that's where we are with this. I don't know if you guys are here to hear us or if you're here to fight us. It's very confusing to me. I'm a property owner. My property is adjacent to Margaret Harris School for the severely disabled, so the kids will be able to stay there in wheelchairs and not be able to move at all. Where they propose to put the cell tower is in direct violation of any sort of zoning codes. We have yet to find out the loophole, the exact loophole that T-Mobile is using to move across not only DeKalb County but the entire nation. I'm still looking for that one. I think the reason that we're here today is that Drenner's bill is being put into your committee, into a large piece of legislation, and it's my understanding that we're here to make our plea to you guys as human beings of citizens for you not to hold that bill. And I could be dead wrong. If you hit me with your technicalities, I'm going to lose with answering your questions because I don't play it that way. I'm not educated in that manner. I am educated in being a human being. I'm not going to click off my emotions. I want you guys to at least be curious enough about what's going on in DeKalb County to be concerned enough on the possible health risk to ask us to find out what's going on. There's a litany of injustices that are going on, you know, and we've run from the Board of Education to the County Board of Commissioners, and now we're over here. And all the time, legislation is moving along. We're being very confused about where it is we're supposed to go. We have a very legitimate case. We have a whole lot of facts. We've been doing the work in this democracy, and we're still not making any headway. I can't understand, you know, some of the adversarial questions that have come out in this meeting. I really don't get it. You know, if we're fighting you please be clear with us on what rule book, what handbook you're using, so that maybe we could have some negotiations instead of coming to some people who are obviously not listening to what I'm saying right now, who are rolling their eyes at us. It's not appreciated, okay? If you go on our website, I will be happy to inform any of you how to do that and where to go. You will see the absolute confusion in the hurry-up meeting that the DeKalb County School Board held a couple of weeks ago about the extreme confusion about how they got involved with it. Some of the school board members don't even remember it. Let me go back and refer to what was said. I don't really remember. Oh, that bill was pushed forward so quickly. We better go back and look at our notes. There's extreme confusion on the DeKalb County School Board. We were trying to make this easier and not come to this place in having someone step forward and say, hey, we need to renegotiate this. And so far, we're playing politics and going from board to board to board, while the bills and the hard work of citizens that are going to be extremely affected by these cell towers are being misled here, and here. I just think it's a travesty.
Ms.
for
Reichman, will you
everyone.
yield to questions?
I don't know. It all depends if they're adversarial or not. I'm not a. You know.
We're not trying to be adversarial at all.
Really?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
What
I would like to do is I'll take a question or two, and if I can't answer it, if you would allow me to defer to some of our
Yes, ma'am.
legal experts, because I'm sure there are others on the other side here. Sure.
Ms. Stevenson.
First of all, thank you for coming.
Thank
I'm
you
Pam
for being
Stevenson.
here.
It's a pleasure. I am one of the 16 DeKalb delegation members that signed on the bill with Representative Carla Drenner.
Thank you.
I am used to all types of questions, never get upset, and I have sat on this committee for, I think this is the second year, if not third year. And usually DeKalb County bills don't even come to intergovernmental.
Right.
It goes straight through to the state level. And so really when we can even talk about our local legislation, it's really something different. But I can speak the language of the technical questions that's being asked. I can also speak the language of perspective questions. And that's what committee members do when we sit here. And after Representative Drenner speaks, we will close, I'm sure, and have it in the rest of this committee. But I just want you to know and the other members to know that we're not unrepresented.
Thank you.
And we're not, my thought is that we're here because it's still local legislation. We have had our bills go all kind of ways from the DeKalb legislative delegation. So I understand because we feel that. But we also know that we have opportunity now to make this bill what it should be so that we could go forward.
Thank
And
you so much.
that is my pledge as
Thank
I
you.
sit here to you.
Thank you very much for being a real human being.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stevenson. Any more questions to Ms. Reichman? Okay, Stephanie Byrne, next.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the committee. My name is Stephanie Byrne. I live just behind Briar Lake Elementary, and I'm going to do my best to not be emotional, but I tell you, I'm shaking so hard. This is a huge issue for me. So I have 3 children that have attended Briar Lake Elementary. I've spent 5 years being a campus beautification PTA co-chair. I'm also a Georgia Master Gardener responsible for the grounds of Briar Lake Elementary. So you understand that I'm intimate with the grounds. We have so many programs at the school. You name it, we have the garden. Wetlands, native, shade, perennial. teaching garden, sensory garden, everything. We use every inch of that space, and it is a small campus. It's 11.4 acres. That may sound like a lot, but it's not, and it's fully surrounded by residents. And my point there is that there is nowhere to put a piece of industrial equipment that will be out of sight. You really just cannot place a piece of industrial equipment on a school campus and ask the children to not be impacted by that. As I said, I'm up there working the campus quite a bit, gardening, and I frequently find children on top of the school on the weekends. These are not elementary kids. These are middle school, high school kids out having fun. If you put something like a cell tower on the grounds, even with barbed wire, it's going to be investigated by the children. It's just not a good idea. That's the simple fact. It's not a good idea. Why are we here today? I tell you, I started with my school board representative, Paul Womack. I said, what are you doing? We don't want this. And he held a meeting at the school to talk about placement, he thought, but all of us were there to ask him what was going on. Well, he stood up in front of all of us in the school cafeteria and shook his finger at us, and he said, this is a done deal. You people need to stop whining. This is a done deal. That is in September. Okay? Well, so obviously it didn't stop there. Went on and spoke at the Board of Education meetings, sent lots of emails to the superintendent, Board of Education members. That was in the early phases when we thought, okay, well, this is a school issue. We'll deal with it at the school level. Well, I didn't get any response there, so I moved on to my Georgia representative, Scott Holcomb. He was very sympathetic, and he began to try and communicate with the Board of Education on our behalf. He didn't receive a response. No response. So after 3 tries, 3 letters, he began to communicate with the Board of Education government liaison to say, what's going on? Well, on the day that the new superintendent, Cheryl Atkinson, wrote back to Scott Holcomb, that was December 8th, she said, look, I'm new at this job. I haven't had time to consider this. The Board of Education voted back in July. I don't know anything about this issue. On that very day, she signed the contract. Signed and executed the contract for Briar Lake Elementary that we were told in September was a done deal. That is why we needed help from Representative Drenner. That is why it's been brought to this level. I would appreciate you all viewing this for what it is. This is help for the citizens of DeKalb County. And we have gone to everybody that we can think of to get help in this issue. Thank you.
Mike 16, will you yield for questions, ma'am?
Sure.
Since you mentioned the contract, do you know, and no one's mentioned it, does anyone know if the contract calls for co-location of E911 service or fire or police protection that otherwise benefits the county, and maybe that's why you're not getting a lot of help from the commission? Do you know if these towers call for co-location?
It does not. In fact, we have interviewed the DeKalb County Police Chief, and he has educated us on the emergency services, and it uses a tower off the top of Stone Mountain. And in fact, the school system has their own radio system for emergency services. This tower is not required.
Thank you.
And I might add that we have 120 towers within 4 miles of Briar Lake Elementary. Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions. If we can, we're running kind of long with our meeting. Joe Staley, is that right? If you can keep it, if we understand the issue, if you got anything that you can add to it, just quickly.
Well, first of all, my name is Joe Staley. I live at the base of Margaret Harris Comprehensive School. I'm an attorney. I've spent probably every waking moment for the last several months working on this issue from every perspective. I've gone to the Board of Education. I've gone to the Board of Commissioners. I've done hours and hours of legal research, and I think we have a tremendous case to show that the tower cannot go on school property without going through proper zoning regulations. However, the Board of Education has no interest in listening to those kind of arguments. I brought all those arguments to them long before the contracts were signed, and there was literally no response. There's a lot of things I could say. I guess if you want me to touch on the things that I think are the most helpful here is that the bottom line is cell phone towers, I believe, just do not belong on school property, and there are and one of the reasons is because school property in DeKalb County is almost always located in the middle of residential areas. So with that being said, there are DeKalb County zoning regulations that apply to cell phone tower siting locations, and those call for minimum setbacks, those call for public hearings, those call for certain fencing and requirements and aesthetic values and all these things, and these zoning regulations call for all that. The Board of Education and T-Mobile are completely circumventing these, or attempting to circumvent these zoning regulations by locating them on school property. Because of that, you have towers that are literally on top of schools and literally on top of residential neighborhoods. If a tower fell at some of these locations, they would fall directly on top of people's homes. I mean, that's crazy. That is why we have the zoning regulations to prevent these kind of siting locations of cell phone towers. So it is beyond frustrating that we're sitting here today. We have a DeKalb County delegation who said no more towers at school property, and here we are. And we're trying to get a almost unanimous bill out of DeKalb County delegation through your committee. So, I guess to be short, why are we here? Let's move the bill to the House floor. Let's let the House vote on it. Let's let the citizens of DeKalb County, who've lobbied their representatives for this bill, let's get it passed. I mean, it's unbelievable to me. I'll leave you with this, because this is something that is completely unrelated, but in the 1960s, smoking was considered healthy. Doctor, I can show you advertisements from that's 8 out of 10 doctors recommend you smoke this brand of cigarette. I mean, look at today's knowledge and wisdom. Here we are. I mean, obviously nobody recommends you smoke anymore. And so I just think it's on top of the zoning issues and the property devaluation issues, the aesthetics, all these things in no residential neighborhoods. I mean, the people that live in these neighborhoods are forced to be subjected to radiation 24 hours a day. And while the evidence today is inconclusive at best, in fact, a lot of European studies show that it is harmful. And certainly, I don't think anybody's going to tell you that radiation exposure is healthy. And this is at least an incremental increase in radiation exposure. That at a minimum we should be concerned. And I just don't think they belong in neighborhoods, residential areas, or especially not on school property. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions I can.
Any questions? No other questions. Ms. McCarthy, Ms. Jackie McCarthy. Ms. McCarthy, do you have anything that you can add that hasn't already been stated? Okay, thank you. Can you be quick?
Good afternoon. My name is Jackie McCarthy. Chairman Sims and members of the committee, thank you for having me here today. I'm Director of State Regulatory Affairs at CTIA, the Wireless Association. We're the national trade association representing wireless carriers, device manufacturers, and internet service providers. We have some representatives of the service provider sector here in Georgia and in DeKalb County who can speak to some of the specifics, but I'm here to just give a little bit of a national perspective. We know that demand for wireless broadband is growing exponentially as new applications, devices, and technologies consume more bandwidth and attract more subscribers. Wireless providers continue to invest in, build out, and upgrade networks to compete on network quality. From energy usage to telecommuting to educational and government access, wireless broadband promises to increase efficiency, connectivity, and information sharing. The economic and societal benefits brought about by wireless broadband require a robust infrastructure backbone, which in turn requires the ability to deploy wireless facilities where they are needed. One of the members of the committee asked about 911 capabilities. And from a national perspective, wireless communications are a key component of our nation's 911 system. We estimate that over 300,000 wireless 911 calls are made in this country every single day. And emergency communications networks are updating nationwide to next generation 911 technologies that will allow for new services to our nation's call centers while providing accurate location information technology. And like all broadband-based technologies, next generation 911 also requires a comprehensive infrastructure deployment. Recent federal recognition of the importance of wireless infrastructure bears some consideration by this committee. In a White House address last year, President Obama established a wireless innovation and infrastructure initiative which proposes to use spectrum auction proceeds to fund wireless infrastructure in unserved and underserved areas. Likewise, the Federal Communications Commission acknowledges that wireless infrastructure is critical for broadband deployment. Its National Broadband Plan stated that wireless networks rely on site deployment and that securing rights to infrastructure deployment is often a difficult and time-consuming process that discourages private investment. Obama appointed FCC Chairman Julius Janikowski pointed to the red tape and delays entailed in the wireless siting process and observed that expediting wireless siting could unleash $11.5 billion nationwide in new broadband infrastructure in 2011 and 12. House Bill 1197's outright prohibition on the placement of wireless towers on an entire class of property in DeKalb County violates federal preemption of state and local laws that prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting any entity from providing wireless service. Similarly, any state or local regulation of wireless facilities on the basis of concerns over the health effects of radio frequency emissions is expressly preempted by federal law. We respectfully submit that, given federal preemption over health effects of radio frequency emissions, House Bill 1197 lacks a compelling public purpose. As wireless providers deploy 4G high-speed mobile broadband services to address exploding consumer demand, they need the option to consider siting wireless facilities on a variety of parcels. By eliminating a significant option for siting wireless facilities in one of the most densely populated jurisdictions in the state, House Bill 1197 would significantly impede the deployment of mobile broadband. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'm glad to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay. You got one? Okay. Ma'am, you do have a question. Will you yield? 15.
Yes. I'm saying that the state and local governments are preempted from prohibiting cell facilities based on concerns about health effects, and also the Telecom Act prevents state and local governments from prohibiting or effectively prohibiting the siting of wireless towers. And so I ask the question, if state and local governments are preempted from considering RF emissions, health effects issues, what the compelling public purpose is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the points that you're making. What's the compelling issue that you would give me? And I appreciate what you'd said about the health concern, but what's your compelling issue on why we should just pass the bill because it's a local bill? What's your compelling answer to that?
I guess my compelling answer is that the federal government has limited the ability of state and local governments to prohibit wireless siting or to effectively prohibit wireless siting, and has also preempted state and local governments from considering RF health effects.
And you're supposing for the moment that I'm not a scientist, not a doctor, don't care, don't know, don't understand the health concerns. Okay, that's not an issue. You keep citing that as the compelling reason, and I'm saying that's not my reason. My reason is it's a local bill that had the signatures. What answer do you have why I shouldn't vote to let it out?
My answer is that the Telecom Act prevents state governments from passing legislation that would either actually prohibit or effectively prohibit the siting of wireless facilities. And we're saying that when you're removing the possibility of siting wireless facilities on an entire class of properties in a jurisdiction without a compelling public purpose, that it violates federal telecom legislation.
One more follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So, and again, I'm not an attorney. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the truth. Then you're saying that federal law says that local governments or state governments cannot tell cell towers where they can or cannot go?
No, sir. The federal government certainly allows for local zoning control of placement of wireless facilities.
And does it allow for state control?
Yes.
Yes, it does? Okay. So again, back to my point. If there's no local reason or no state reason to prohibit it from a federal level, then other than your health argument, why shouldn't we pass the bill as a simple local legislation?
Well, I mean, I guess if preempting a whole class of properties from DeKalb County from consideration for wireless infrastructure, we view that as being an effective prohibition of wireless service in the area. And so, I'm not able to say whether a court would view that the same.
Mike 6, please.
Just a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, why would any of the providers pick a school system, period, knowing with the children out there, the dangers, the parents, the congestion? Why this area? You talk about that classification. Why? And how did you get in touch with? You may not know, but why? How did this come about in DeKalb County?
I think, generally speaking, wireless carriers look at a variety of parcels whenever they're looking to fill a coverage gap, a dead zone, or the need for increased capacity. I don't know the specifics of why these DeKalb County schools were chosen, and maybe the following speaker can speak to that specifically.
Flag immediately.
Sure.
I would think. Wouldn't you think so?
I mean, I would think.
No, I no comment. I'm just let her answer.
I mean, I think each of these decisions is based on, first and foremost engineering standards, but also, the ability to find properties that, I mean, I think it's a combination of engineering, real estate, and zoning. And
may I ask you this question? Was there, in these negotiations, was there a lot of money involved with DeKalb County in picking these sites? Would you think there would be? Or do they just allow them to go for nothing?
I don't know. I don't know
you
how
do
much.
know.
Well, I don't know how much money. Certainly, there's
Chairman
a revenue. There's a
Chairman
long-term
Coleman, I'm
revenue
going to try to
stream.
help you with this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Let Ms. Stevenson. Ms. Stevenson, do you want to ask a question?
I just want to make sure I was clear on your answer to the 1996 Telecommunications Act.
Mm-hmm.
Does not preempt local zoning regulations being met, nor state zoning regulations being met.
It doesn't preempt local zoning or state regulation, but it does preempt state or local laws that prohibit or effectively prohibit any entity from providing wireless service.
I know you added on to my question, but the second part of my question is, to your knowledge, has there been any zoning approval?
I'm not aware of that, but I know the
That's
following
it.
speaker can speak to that.
No, I don't think it has been.
I'm on here.
I'm leading us so that we could come to the.
Okay.
Ms. Smith, Ellen Smith, I'm going to let her come up. You got just a second here, a few seconds, if you want to add, and if you will, I think there may be a question or two, but if you'll just kind of hang there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Sims and members of the committee, I think I'll say good afternoon. It was good morning a little while ago. I'm Ellen Smith. I'm the co-chair of the Regulatory Committee for the Georgia Wireless Association. I am a Cobb County resident, and I'm originally from Augusta, and I practice law with Holton and Zatkoff and Wasserman out of the Cobb Galleria. I'm here today on behalf of the Georgia Wireless Association to speak in opposition to House Bill 1197, hopefully to address some of the concerns that y'all have just raised on a local level. And I want to just tell you the Georgia Wireless Association is a nonprofit industry organization. We were founded in 2004. Our membership consists primarily of individuals who are involved in the deployment, operation, and maintenance of wireless facilities, towers, antennas, everything related to wireless. Our network and our membership include carriers, tower companies, service providers, consultants, architecture and engineering firms, law firms, general contractors, to name a few. I echo and reiterate the testimony you just heard about the federal law, and I do think the federal law, while it allows for state and local governments to have flexibility to adopt certain zoning requirements and placement requirements, there is a limitation on that ability of state and local governments. And the limitation is if there is a prohibition that prohibits a carrier from deploying not a carrier only, but the deployment of wireless services. And in this instance, we respectfully submit to you that prohibiting entirely any school board or school property, it's not clear to me from the legislation, as a class of properties at all, no wireless facility would be allowed on that property, that would violate the federal law. Georgians increasingly rely on wireless devices. More than 26% of Georgians' households rely only on wireless services, and that number is increasing. That means those families do not have a hard telephone line in their home. So for 911 calls, any other calls, they are relying on their wireless device. To provide the services that Georgians demand and rely upon, anchor institutions like schools are often the most practical place to site wireless facilities. This is particularly true in DeKalb County. The reason it is particularly true in DeKalb County is more than 80% of DeKalb County is zoned residential. The DeKalb County zoning ordinance as drafted right now prohibits wireless facilities entirely on a residentially zoned property. That said, the reason that the school board does not have to comply with Zoning Procedures Act and the zoning ordinance in DeKalb County is because the school board is a state entity under the state school board. So it does not have to go through, a wireless facility does not have to go through zoning in DeKalb County. On the contrary to what someone stated, you do still have to obtain a building permit. You do still have to comply with life safety requirements, structural requirements, and the like. Those are not exempt from, those facilities, just like a school building is not exempt from getting a building permit and going through those life safety requirements that are state code driven. The adoption of this bill would result in multiple violations of the Georgia Constitution. And respectfully, I would submit that that's part of the reason that it is before your committee and has not gone on sort of the typical route that local legislation would go. First, the Georgia Constitution prohibits local laws for which provision has been made by general law. It is long-standing Georgia Supreme Court law that independent school systems constitute one class, and uniformity requires that they be treated alike. In other words, you cannot allow this bill impacting only DeKalb County Board of Education to go forward because it would violate the state constitution. As an aside, in this particular instance, I can tell you the Board of Education did in fact hold public meetings. I know because I was there on behalf of T-Mobile. I was a paid representative of T-Mobile to attend those community meetings. T-Mobile initially proposed 12 sites to the DeKalb Board of Education. The reason they picked sites that were on public education or public school property was because in DeKalb County, there are any number of limitations. The bulk of the county is residentially zoned. The bulk of those residentially zoned parcels are too small to allow a wireless tower to be placed on them. School board property typically is larger property. It does allow for the engineering and the siting to go forward. The Board of Education considered these proposals, and there were public meetings, community meetings held. Representatives of the school board attended, representatives of T-Mobile attended, and they were on the news. Fox 5 had them on, a number of other news cycles were on. That was before any lease was signed. The school board ultimately voted to allow 9 of those facilities to go forward. And so with all due respect, you've heard the motion. There were public hearings, and T-Mobile followed the process that the DeKalb School Board told them to follow. So I just wanted you to at least hear that. Other grounds for constitutional reasons this bill should not go forward. The General Assembly may not pass general or local laws that limit the constitutional authority granted to local school boards. That's Georgia Constitutional Article 8, Section 5. As you all, I'm sure, are well familiar, in May of 2011, the Georgia Supreme Court struck down the Georgia Charter Schools Commission, upholding the constitutional role of local school boards against an attempt via general law to bypass local school boards in the creation of charter schools. That court held local boards of education have exclusive control over K through 12 schools. A general local law, such as this one, attempting to limit local school board control over school property would be unconstitutional. Finally, you've heard a lot about zoning. I think I've explained the reason that school board property is not subject to zoning, but in any event, even if it were, the Georgia Constitution has delegated to county commissions the option, and in fact, some would say the mandate, to enact their own local zoning procedures and zoning ordinances. A local law, again, is prohibited where provision has been made by general law. General Assembly enacted the Zoning Procedures Act, OCGA 66-1, that establishes minimum procedures governing a county or municipality's exercise of zoning power. So a local bill proposing to prohibit uses of property like this one within a county is unconstitutional. You've heard the emotion. Property and health are emotional issues. There is no question about that. That said, there are legal ways to deal with those issues.
Ma'am, I'm going to try to cut you off and try to help you out a little bit here because we're running a little long. Do y'all have any questions of Ms. Smith? Anybody? I'm going to try to help everybody out. Okay, you got your question. Let me try to explain to you why we're here. Okay, and this is the reason. She's made the statement as to the constitutionality of a local bill. Now, what this amounts to is I don't really like this. I don't like the fact that a school board has the right, an exclusive right, to gain access to property because I feel like it puts them in an advantageous position over that of a local landowner because they can affect the zoning. And the reason they can affect zoning is because state property is not subject to zoning ordinances. And so, in my opinion, that is the bill that needs to be addressed, not a local bill that subjects these towers from going wherever they need to go. Now, again, I do have a little bit of a problem putting them on school grounds for various and sundry reasons, but there's nothing in the Constitution that would allow us as a body and as a legislative body to make a local bill, a local ordinance that would prohibit or allow. We couldn't do either one. The reason is this is a local issue, and it is subject to the school board. Now, I'm going to try to help everybody here try to fix this problem. This bill can't move forward because it is unconstitutional, this one itself. There is another bill, a companion bill, am I right, Mr. Renner, that is moving now somewhere in the process. Is that correct? Is that not right? And that is the bill that needs to be moved on, okay? The other side of this is this. I do have statements from Legislative Council as to unconstitutionality of the bill. Okay, I have it here. If you want to read them, I've got them, okay? The other thing is the federal preemption that we cannot, it mandates that also. Now, that being said, I would suggest to you and your local delegation, Ms. Stevenson, Ms. Brenner, and Senator Carter, that you put a joint referendum together, a non-binding referendum, and for the school board to know how the people in your county feel about this. I think that would establish the fact that if they want these or not. I think that's the first step that you need to take. The second step I would take is that there is a way to affect your school board in many, many ways if they don't want to listen. And the way you can do that, and I've been told this, is they have a policy book, okay? Their book of policy. Now, school boards can make or break policy all they want to, but if you take that policy book and make it local law, they can't do it. And they could be subject to malfeasance in office if they break it at that point in time. That is my suggestion to both of you. I had to do that to my school board because they were fighting in the, absolutely coming to a fist fight, and we nearly lost our accreditation because of just absolute inane behavior. Now, I don't know what's going on at the DeKalb County School Board. I don't know where it's going, but I think those two suggestions for you as a delegation are really the only things that you can do except for the local bill. The reason, what she's saying, I like to get it where everybody can understand it because all this legal mumbo jumbo, I'm not a lawyer either. But if we were to make a bill such as this, it'd be the same as saying that all the stoplights in DeKalb County are no longer valid. You can just run stoplights, but in 158 counties, you could run the stoplights. You can't, but only in DeKalb that you can. And that's what this bill actually does, and that's why we can't do it. We just can't single out one county and say they can't put this up. It would have to be all the counties, and then they would have, and that would probably be a fight on that end on the federal level. But we as a body cannot do that. So that is why we're here. I wanted to hear your thoughts. I wanted to hear both sides of the story, and I wanted to tell you what my suggestions were. That's the best I can do because that's the only thing we can do. You still have time for that if you want to put that together. If you can get it to me before day 35, we can put that together for you and get it out of here. A non-binding referendum that states that, you know, that whether or not cell towers need to be in the school system, you can put that before the people. It's non-binding on the school board, but it will let them know your opinion of the people of DeKalb and how they feel about it. And that certainly might determine whether or not somebody might, as you said, Ms. Davis, vote for whoever's down there. I mean, you do have a choice in that matter too. I'm not suggesting you do whatever. That's your business and that's your personal desire, and I'm not telling you what to do. But I am making the suggestion to try to help you in your plight. Now, I don't think that the cell tower folks are the bad guys here. I don't. The bad guys here are your local school board for not listening to you to start with, okay? But also the law is not very evenly matched, in my opinion, as far as public properties having an advantage over that of residential property, of private property. But that's another bill and another time, and it won't be addressed in this committee, I can guarantee you. And by challenging this, if you were to go this route, it will be challenged. Your school board will have to spend thousands upon thousands of dollars in order to fight it. That's your tax money that we don't need to spend because you don't have it to spend now. So what my suggestion is to go to those routes, either take your policy book, make it local law, and do a non-binding referendum to let your school board know how you feel. That is my suggestion. I will try to help you with that bill. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no constitutional problem with that. And if you want to do that, I will leave that up to your delegation. But from that point and all, I'm going to, Chairman Coleman, you want to make a statement?
I just want to say one thing we're saying. You made a good point about the Supreme Court ruling on the local authority. That's what we're saying at the state level. They have just about stripped off, said we don't have any responsibility at all. I don't know if we ought to give money, we ought to do anything. And that's why that charter legislation, we're talking about that Constitution Amendment, simply said that there should be a partnership. And I hope you just remember what I say on that and hope something.
I don't want to open up a can of worms, but I think my chairman just did that. We have to decide whether or not we want local control or we don't want local control. It's the bottom line here.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Okay. Well, if you're going to address her, I'm going to let y'all do that after the meeting. Yes, okay. Miss. Honestly, I'm not from DeKalb. I can't make a local bill or address something in DeKalb County. I'm from Coffee County. I'm in the breakfast communities down there, coffee, bacon, early, and cook. Okay, so I mean I'm so far in the backwoods you got to pump in sunlight. But what I'm trying to say is, he can't if he's not from DeKalb. If you're not from DeKalb County, you can't make a local bill for another county. That's just it's not allowed. We can't do that. Only your delegation is going to be able to. Okay. Okay.
I will respond to that. On behalf of being one of the 16 DeKalb delegation members that signed that bill, I will be in contact with the DeKalb Board of Education on behalf of the DeKalb citizens. You see, we don't often have local bills in this committee because most of our bills become state bills. So while it is local, I'm going to work with the author and the senator in our delegation on not only doing those recommendations, but seeing how we got here with this local bill. So I will take that on.
If there are no further questions, ma'am, yes, ma'am. Ma'am, all I'm saying is that is a local issue with your local school board. We, as a general body, can't make just one law that affects your school board like that. I mean, I understand you're saying, are we the oversight of that Board of Education? No, sir. No, ma'am. We're not the oversight of the state board. The State Board of Education is, not us. Okay. It's not the same bill. Well, we'll just go offline with him, Senator Carter, if y'all will. Y'all can talk. Okay, ma'am, we're going to have to, I'm going to have to get out of here because our building, we've only got so long. Sure, you certainly can. Thank you. And we stand adjourned.